All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're unpacking a genuinely fascinating and, frankly, kind of tough concept. It's this idea that sometimes putting romance completely on hold to work on yourself is actually the absolute healthiest, most mature move you can make. We've all been sold this fairy tale that finding the one is the finish line, right? Cue the rom-com music. But what if you simply aren't in the right headspace to handle that amazing person when they finally do show up? Well, we're going to break down 5 dead giveaway signs that you might be sabotaging your relationships before they even get off the ground. To kick things off, let's talk about that knee-jerk reaction we all have when things start getting a little rocky. Honestly, more often than not, our first instinct is to just point the finger. We are so quick to blame our partners, asking deflective questions like, why can't they notice me more? It's a total defensive reflex because, let's be real, it is way easier to cast the other person as the villain in your story than to actually take a long, hard look in the mirror. And this blame game, it doesn't just stay as quiet little thoughts in our heads. We start throwing out these major accusations. We literally tell our partners to be less narrow-minded. We essentially demand that they completely overhaul their perspective to accommodate our needs, while we conveniently ignore our own massive flaws. It's basically building a courtroom case against them just to protect our own egos. So the frustration just keeps building, and the next thing you know, we're practically shouting, "Listen to the words coming out of my mouth." But here is what we absolutely have to understand about this whole dynamic. This frantic, defensive energy, this outward blame, it's a giant smokescreen. It entirely masks the real, fundamental issues lurking right beneath the surface. It's just loud noise, perfectly designed to distract us from a very quiet, uncomfortable truth. Which brings us to a really crucial pivot. You've got to turn that mirror around and ask yourself a seriously tough question. Are you actually putting the exact same amount of effort on the table? Like, can you honestly say you are just as attentive and present as your partner? Relationships aren't just about figuring out how to love someone else. They're this profound experience that actively teaches you how to be a better human. And if you aren't ready to put in that sweat equity, well, you probably aren't ready for the relationship. Okay, so that leads us into section 1, surface-level sabotage, looking at selfishness, pride, and mind reading. Now, it is so incredibly easy to judge selfishness. I mean, obviously, taking care of yourself is healthy, but being a selfish partner is a straight-up relationship killer. But what's truly mind-blowing here is how clinical professor Srini Pillai reframes this whole thing. He points out that selfish lovers actually suffer from this deep, agonizing feeling of inadequacy. It's not malice, it's sheer terror. When they show even a tiny bit of vulnerability, they are terrified the love is just going to vanish. Because they lack that core self-connection, they overcompensate by taking way more than they give just to feel safe. So, how do we actually fix this? Well, instead of stubbornly clinging to your pride, you have to face your own pain head-on. Pillay suggests rebuilding that self-connection through really simple grounding hobbies, things like running, journaling, or meditating. And when a fight inevitably breaks out, you've got to drop the desperate need to be right. Being the first one to offer a sincere apology isn't losing. It actually shifts the entire dynamic toward preventing future issues, rather than just telling up who won the argument. Another huge surface-level trap is expecting your partner to read your mind, which, let's be honest, is a superpower literally 0 of us have. If you're being passive-aggressive, like hiding why you're mad just to avoid conflict, or worse, testing them to see if they care enough to figure it out, you're setting an impossible trap. It's all about freezing. Instead of throwing out blame with stuff like, "I'm upset because you never," flip the script to a healthy I statement. Saying, "I'm upset and I would really appreciate it if," communicates exactly what you need, without immediately triggering their defenses. Let's move right into section 2, heading into the deep waters, the roots of codependency and commitment phobia. I want you to get real with yourself for a second. Do you get incredibly, overwhelmingly anxious when you are apart from your partner? Do you just feel entirely lost the second they leave the room? Look, it's totally normal to miss your person, but if your entire foundation crumbles when they aren't around, you have to ask a really heavy question. Do you genuinely love them, or are you just emotionally dependent on them to simply function day to day? This is huge because psychologists point out that what often feels like this epic, all-consuming love is actually clinical codependency. It's an emotional dependence born from a complete lack of self-sufficiency. And where does that usually start? Almost always, it's rooted right in your unmet childhood needs. When you don't get that fundamental security as a kid, You literally carry that void into your adult life. You end up desperately trying to use your partner to plug a hole they were never, ever meant to fill. Now, directly parallel to that codependent anxiety is another massive roadblock: commitment phobia, or relationship anxiety. And we need to clear something up. This is not about just wanting to stay single and play the field. People with commitment phobia actually deeply want a long-term loving connection. The absolute tragedy of it is that their profound, paralyzing anxieties completely hijack that desire, causing them to push amazing partners away out of pure survival instinct. These commitment issues don't just drop out of the sky. They follow a very clear trajectory of trauma. It's a snowball effect. Maybe it starts in childhood, say, witnessing a brutal divorce that teaches you early on that love is inherently unsafe. Fast forward to your own past. Maybe you end up in a highly toxic romantic relationship. All of that compounds over time. So by the time you reach the present day, you're left with this massive hesitation to open up, completely terrified that whoever you love will inevitably leave or disappoint you. All right, bringing us to our final part, Section 3, healing and moving forward, and how we actually go about breaking the cycle. Because we can't just leave it there, right? Here is the actual practical blueprint to break these cycles. Since things like codependency and commitment phobia are so deeply tied to our pasts, step 1 is going to therapy to finally uncover those feelings you've been burying for decades. Step 2 is actively, bravely confronting those deep-rooted insecurities. Once you do that, step 3 is non-negotiable. You have to express these fears openly to your partner. And finally, step 4 is sitting down together to create a collaborative, actionable plan to move the relationship forward safely. Ultimately, doing this heavy lifting helps you realize a fundamental truth about connection. True relationships aren't a hiding place. They are an experience that refines you. Love is about pure appreciation. It's about honoring someone for exactly who they are. It is absolutely not about possession. It's not about clinging to someone just to soothe your own childhood wounds. And it definitely shouldn't feel like a hostage situation driven by anxiety. So the entire point of this explainer really boils down to your own self-awareness. I want to leave you with this final provocative thought to chew on today. When you look honestly at these signs,